Imagine waking up one day to find the world completely off balance, quite literally. A cataclysmic event, a mysterious force, has shifted all the water on Earth to one side of the planet. Oceans, rivers, and lakes have drained from one half of the globe, leaving it dry and cracked, while the other half drowns under unfathomable amounts of water. In the US, panic spreads as soon as the news breaks. Coastal cities like New York and Miami find themselves completely flooded. The Statue of Liberty barely peaks above the water, its torch a solitary reminder of the world that once was. People scramble to higher ground, but it's not long before they realize that higher is a relative term. Eventually, the water just keeps rising. Meanwhile, in the Midwest, a different kind of horror unfolds. What were once lush farmlands have become arid deserts. Lakes like Michigan and Erie dry up entirely, revealing long-forgotten shipwrecks and the bones of creatures that had once swum freely in the deep. Crops wither under the sun as temperatures rise to unbearable levels. Farmers look out over barren fields and know they can no longer produce food to sustain the population. As the nation grapples with these extremes, power dynamics begin to shift. The government sets up emergency shelters in the Appalachian Mountains and the Rockies, places that have become islands of relative safety. These areas, once remote and sparsely populated, now teem with millions of displaced people. Social structures break down. People from every walk of life, CEOs, teachers, factory workers, are forced to coexist in the same cramped shelters, trying to make sense of a world that no longer makes sense. In Washington, D.C., political leaders struggle to maintain order, but it quickly becomes apparent that the situation is beyond anyone's control. Debates over climate change take on a dark irony as senators, once dismissive of environmental concerns, are forced to wade through waist-high water just to reach the Capitol building. The president issues a statement, calling for unity and promising relief, but deep down, everyone knows there's no way to stop this disaster. It's survival of the fittest now. As time goes on, the pressure on resources becomes unbearable. Water, ironically, is now the most scarce commodity on the dry side of the world, while those trapped in the flooded regions face the threat of drowning or starving as infrastructure collapses. In the parched Midwest, people dig desperately into the earth, hoping to find some hidden reservoir. The once mighty Mississippi River is now a canyon, empty and lifeless. Water riots break out, and communities that once worked together now turn against each other for a few precious drops. In California, the coast is swallowed by the Pacific. Silicon Valley, once the hub of innovation and technology, is no more. The tech giants, who were once the rulers of this digital world, are helpless as their data centers drown. All their wealth, their power, is meaningless in the face of this new reality. Some of them retreat to bunkers, but even there, they can only buy themselves a little more time. Survival instincts kick in. Communities begin to form in the mountains and higher ground, resembling small, tribal societies. People with practical skills, like farming, carpentry, and medicine, become the new elites. The digital age is dead, and manual labor is back in demand. Those who can contribute to the survival of the group are prized, while the rest are left to fend for themselves. Survival has become a daily battle against dehydration, food shortages, and disease. But even amidst the chaos, hope flickers. Scientists, huddled in makeshift labs in the Rocky Mountains, are working around the clock to understand the forces that caused the disaster. They study the Earth's magnetic fields, gravitational shifts, and any potential cosmic factors. One theory emerges. A disturbance in the planet's core has tilted the balance of the oceans. If they can correct this disturbance, they might be able to reverse the water's displacement. But time is running out. Every day, more of the population succumbs to the elements. Diseases spread quickly in the overcrowded shelters, and many lose hope. Yet, those scientists push forward, despite the odds, driven by a singular goal: to bring balance back to the planet. Then, one day, they make a breakthrough. Using advanced technology, they develop a device that could restore equilibrium. But activating it requires massive energy, more energy than any existing facility can produce. They turn to the last functional nuclear power plant, located deep in the mountains. It becomes a race against time to reach the plant, avoiding the collapsing infrastructure and hostile survivors who see them as a threat rather than salvation. As the scientists approach the plant, they are confronted by a group of survivalists who have taken control of the facility. These survivalists believe that the current state of the world is punishment for humanity's greed and arrogance, and they refuse to allow the device to be activated. A standoff ensues, with the fate of the planet hanging in the balance. Negotiations are tense. The survivalists argue that the world was broken before the water ever moved, and returning to the old ways would only doom them all again. The scientists counter that humanity deserves a second chance, a chance to learn from their mistakes and rebuild in a more sustainable way. In the end, a fragile truce is reached, and the survivalists allow the scientists to proceed. With the energy from the nuclear plant, the device is powered up, and the scientists activate it. For a moment, nothing happens, and despair sets in. But then, slowly, the oceans begin to recede from the flooded areas. The water starts to flow back, balancing itself across the globe once more. It takes days for the process to complete, but when it does, the world is forever changed. Cities that had been underwater emerge in ruins, while the once dry lands begin to see the return of rain and greenery. But the Earth is not the same place it was before. Entire ecosystems have shifted, coastlines have been redrawn, and millions of people have been displaced. The world must now rebuild, but this time, with the lessons learned from the disaster. In the end, humanity survives, but only just. The survivors look out over a changed world, knowing that they have been given a second chance. The question remains: will they make the most of it, or will they fall into the same patterns that led them to the brink of extinction? As they rebuild, a new society forms, one that values sustainability and cooperation over greed and exploitation. The survivors tell stories of the Great Flood and the dry lands, passing down the lessons to future generations. And while the world will never be the same, there is hope that it can be better.